What's up, everybody? New Beats and Billions podcast. I'm with Isaac Dulgarian, the Midwest Chapo. What's going on?
What's going on, brother? I just got back to Kansas City. Haven't been back here in about 3, 4 months. So excited to be back. Just knocking a lot of things out, riding my jet ski and just having fun a little bit and taking care of some stuff around my grandparents' house. So getting them all caught back up.
Yeah, man. So I remember when you got signed to the UFC when Dana White was in Kansas City. Um, I was actually there.
Mhm.
This was shortly after I had Mike Murray on my podcast. And so was there supporting him and Mikey England and those guys, Gage Young,
Oh yeah.
Marshall Kemp, And I remember Mike told me he was like, you got to watch out for the main event. And then Dana White posted whatever. And so I was intrigued. I'm a fight fan. I train, things like that. So I'm intrigued. I always like seeing that kind of stuff. So when I saw you, Josh Friend was on that card as well, who's now in the UFC. A lot of talent came off that
Mhm.
card. Lots of talent on that card, it seems like. But anyway, I remember when you got signed and made quick work of that guy in like a couple minutes, less than a minute, something like that. Um, so and then you were scheduled to fight Dan Argueta, who's also been on my podcast. And so I was like, oh, Glory, I support Glory. I train at Glory. Well, it's not Glory anymore, but at the time it was. So I was like, I
Yeah,
support
yeah.
them. I train with them. But at the same time, Dan's been on my podcast and that fell out. But that was going to be a great fight. Two wrestlers. And then you finally got it against Francis Marshall Francis Marshall.
Yep.
So what was the experience like? I mean, and through that time, you started selling honey. At one point, you drove around the United States in a van. So it was like
Yeah.
there was a lot of stuff to unpack. So what was the experience like from getting signed all the way to uh your debut?
Yeah, so man, it was a long, long road for me to finally get to that debut. It's something I looked forward to since I was a little kid. I knew I could make it to the UFC, but it was just about getting there and getting to the fight. And I had a couple of injuries with my fight with Argueta. I tore my LCL twice in two different places. I tore it once, took the 8 weeks off, got cleared, and then I tore it again like 2 weeks into training. So it was a long, long time with the recovery and stuff. And then the rest of it, I was training through most of the time, other than during that recovery period. Um, there's just a lot going on because, like you said, I got signed by Dana White and the Nelk Boys, and I had to wait like 3, 4 months until I realized my Nelk Boys deal wasn't going to turn out. So I wanted to get that done before I made my UFC debut so that everything just the ball kept rolling, everything kept going. I kept gaining momentum, kept gaining followers, fans, all that stuff. And that deal didn't work out. So basically that's when Glory got shut down. And then I made the move over to Factory X and tore my knee. And long story short, it was about 16 weeks until I could train again, and then I had to get a full camp in. So
Right.
that's another 10 weeks. So long road to get here, long road to get to that fight. But with this sport, that stuff happens. It's a roller coaster, lots of ups and downs, and you have to be the one willing to stick around through all the BS.
Yeah, no, for sure. There's a I talked to a lot of fighters and even myself. You're never gonna go into a fight 100% healthy. You're always gonna have a nagging injury of some sort. And
Oh yeah.
obviously, it might not be to the extent of like, no meniscus in your knee or something like that, but you're gonna have a nagging injury of some sort. And that's just what it takes to be champion. Being able to battle that adversity. If you look at, was it last weekend, Sean O'Malley, rib injury, wasn't able to grapple for 6 weeks, and going into a fight against Aljamain Sterling, you'd like to grapple. That's just something you'd
Preferably.
maybe want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like you got to be champ, you got to deal with those injuries and battle that adversity. And that's just what it takes, which is why this sport is so grueling. But at the same time, so when Glory shut down, a lot of guys went to Factory X because Mark Montoya mentored James. So it's kind of like you're getting the same knowledge almost. And Mark Montoya is a great coach. I've talked to him, and I love it. I love how he has um weaponized the low calf kick. I mean, you think about like American Top Team, they got really good at it, but Factory X is taking it to a whole nother level. I mean, even today, a couple hours ago, Anthony Smith, like in his fight,
Mhm.
really used that low calf kick. I mean, you see Roy Vol using it, and like a lot of these guys coming onto the scene. I talked to Markel and from
No
Factory
doubt.
X, and he was like, it's very interesting because like a lot of our guys are breaking onto the scene now, but I feel like we've been doing this for a while, so I mean, have you always kind of been in with Factory X, or did you just move over there shortly after Glory moved down?
Yeah, I never been out there. I'd only trained at Glory. That was the first gym I went to. And I plan to stick there because it's in Kansas City and I want to rep Kansas City throughout my career. I was born here,
Mm-hmm.
raised here, and I don't want to ever stray from that. But I did have to make the move to Factory just because I didn't have enough partners out here in Kansas City. And everyone at Factory is a really good striker. Like you don't walk like that whole room, you don't get any guys that are soft. Like everybody's a good striker, everyone's decent at grappling. And I feel like that's where kind of my skill comes into play because there's like me and like Jacoby Jones and a couple other wrestlers up there that help push the strikers to learn the grappling, and then they help us tremendously with the striking. I'm getting to strike with like Chris Gutierrez and Yusuf Zalal and
Mm-hmm.
Markel, and like those guys are nasty in the stand up. So getting to train with them and getting looks from them helps me tremendously.
Yeah, I mean, it's I think Joe Rogan says something about this, being at a small gym like Glory, at one point, I mean, it wasn't so small towards the end of its life, I guess, but like it was still relatively small when you compare it to, the American kickboxing academies and, all those bigger gyms. I mean, even Factory X. But Joe Rogan says something about like being at a big gym like the American Top Teams of the world, like just does something for you that a small gym can't, because you got, the best of the best here, the best of the best there, the best of the best here. So it's just like you can mix and match. And so being at a bigger gym like Factory X is, um, that definitely plays into the development as a fighter, because you're getting, like, we obviously know you're no slouch in the grappling department, or anywhere but the grappling department. So being able to go with that high level striker just elevates you in other ways, and you're elevating them. So it's like iron sharpens iron. But
Oh, definitely.
I did want to ask. So when you got signed with the UFC and with the Nelk, or when you thought you were going to get signed with the Nelk Boys, what was like that moment like for you? Because I mean, that's like a dream come true. I mean, you got the Nelk Boys cranking you, like pushing you out on social media, and then you also you're in the UFC, so it's like it almost seems like a fast track to success if you look at it from a blind eye.
Yeah, no, I knew that that was an opportunity that could potentially change my life. Before that fight with TJ, I was going through a lot of things in life, and I didn't want to take that fight, but also I couldn't let that opportunity pass. I would always regret it if I let it pass. So, I didn't have much of a training camp for that fight, like an actual training camp. Didn't really do anything right like I did for my debut. I just went out there and fought my best fight and just fought with my heart in that fight. And I ended up putting them away early. It was my first time scheduled for 5 rounds. And to be honest, man, I didn't think for that one I was going to be ready for 5 rounds. I was like, I got to finish him.
Mm-hmm.
So the last fight in my debut, I was ready to go 30 minutes if we had to. It didn't matter. Like I was fully prepared, fully ready to fight, and a lot of people were talking about my cardio in my debut fight because we haven't seen me fight past the third round or past the first round. But man, now let me tell you, that wasn't going to be a problem in that fight. I put everything, I put my heart and soul into that and into that training camp, and man, it was great. But back to the Dana White thing, man, it was how do you put it? It was just it was almost overwhelming the amount of support I had. One, and then two, I just knew that I changed my life for the better. I didn't want to be fighting on these regional scenes anymore, not making a lot of money. I'm trying to be a household name, and I think that was just a big step forward for me. And a lot of people with my experience level don't get that opportunity, and they don't get in the UFC in the first place. So, yeah, just a blessing overall. Was super excited. My whole family was there. I saw my dad's uncle. He's a couple years older than me. I hadn't seen him in like 6 years. He popped in right before, like probably like 30 minutes before I fought. I walked out and I saw him, and it just like completely like overwhelmed me because I was like, I haven't seen you so long. I love you, all this stuff.
Yeah.
And my dad passed away when I was a kid, so like me and him got separated. When I was a kid, and I just hadn't seen him in a long time. So having him there really lit a fire into my ass as well.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy what just something random can do to, I mean, it's almost like you're searching without wanting to search for something, just something to like uplift you. I mean, in everyday life, it seems like, you don't want to go to the gym. So you like nonchalantly search unknowingly to find something to motivate you. Whether it's
Mhm.
sometimes it's just taking a shower and like, all right, I'm ready to go, or, whatever it is. So having that, having something before you're going into something as primal as a fist fight, the closest thing to modern gladiation as we can get to at this point in our society. And so being able to have that uplift you, I mean, I can only imagine what that would do. I mean, even just seeing someone that you have that bond with, I mean, in everyday life is special, but especially when you're getting ready to go into a fist fight. So then, fast forward, what what was it like when you first got into that UFC octagon? Because you can kind of like backtrack it when you first got into an octagon in general, and then you even stepped into a practice room, and then you got your first spar, and then you get into the first octagon in general, then the first fight. What was it like compared to all of those other first experiences getting into that UFC octagon with getting your hands wrapped, being under the unified rules?
Yeah, so beforehand, before I even made the walk, I was a little nervous. It wasn't anything overwhelming. I've always been very good at containing that nervous energy and kind of using it,
Mm-hmm.
and not letting it consume me. But as soon as I made the walk, I walked out to Fat Joe so much more. Um, I started getting gangster, and
Yeah.
just something switched. I stepped in the octagon, man, and I felt like I was at home. Like you can tell in my like when they're announcing me and stuff, like my body's calm. I'm focused on the task at hand and nothing else. A lot of people were talking about pre-fight jitters, even people close to me, like, bro, you're gonna get nervous in there. Just don't worry about it. Just keep fighting and all this other stuff. And I didn't have those jitters. I was literally at home. I was at peace with what was gonna happen. And I looked across the cage. My opponent was staring me down, and I wasn't even worried about him. I was like, I don't care. Look at me. Stare at me all you want. It doesn't matter. It's not going to change the result of this fight. You looking at me.
Right.
So, yeah, man, I felt at home. I felt like as soon as I walked into the room, I owned the room. And when I stepped in the octagon, people that know me knew it was mine. You could tell just by my body language.
Yeah. I mean, that's something that happens a lot in fights. I mean, like there's just like at some points in bigger fights, like for me, your fight was a big fight, but I mean, not to the casual eye. I mean, that whole week, um, I do a show where we like talk about the fights and whatnot, and I'm trying to tell you, Isaac Dulgarian is that guy. Like, don't play, just he's that guy. And I remember when you got announced to fight Dan, I said the same thing. Like Isaac Dulgarian is that guy. I don't expect you guys to know. Just take my word for it. And I mean, you kind of proved me right, so I appreciate that. But um, what what is it like when you are fighting that up and coming guy? I mean, the Francis Marshall came off the Contender Series. Everyone was like, he's a bad man, and then you make easy work of him. What did you expect? Were you kind of in the back of your mind, like, were you expecting to like do it as dominant as you did, or did you think it was going to be a knockdown drag out? I mean, what was your mentality going into it?
So the way I looked at it was, the UFC put two up and coming prospects together at the beginning of their career. You know, we don't see that a lot. So in my eyes, that's them trying to see who's the bad motherfucker, like
Mm,
who's really about it. And so that's kind of how I was viewing it. I expected it to be a 3 round dogfight. I trained for a 3 round dogfight. Um, but man, when I get a hold of you, it's different. When I punch you, it's different. When I elbow you, you feel it. You know what I'm saying? So uh, once I got in there and I started moving, landed some hard calf kicks off the rip, I saw his eyes change a little bit. He wasn't this mean cat no more. He was normal, just like all of us. So when that happened, um, I was ready to let it fly and ended up fitting in early. Just I was prepared to strike, but I just saw the takedown. He was super heavy on that lead foot. His feints were super heavy. Went to fit in, got the takedown, and then realized he's not really doing much but holding my head down, trying to hold my posture. So from there, I started really trying to posture up and land good elbows and just advance position slowly. And during that fight, I was just beating him up slow, 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 trying to advance. And then I finally found enough space in the right position to land my shot, that big elbow that cut him down the middle. And
mm.
once that happened, I kind of realized that it hurt him a lot. Probably broke his orbital because I elbowed him hard. And I was like, man, there's a finish right here. So I've always got first round finishes. I don't really go for them too much. I'm very instinctual when I fight, very primal, and I can see when the finish is there. So I kind of just took that opportunity and started laying some heavy strikes on him. And like I said, I was fully prepared for 3 rounds. So like if the ref didn't stop the fight, I was very confident I was going to recover in between the rounds. That's something that we trained a lot for this camp, making sure my recovery is good. And yeah, I was going to be fresh when we came back out in round two.
Yeah, I mean, the cardio in your department didn't look bad. I mean, you see a lot of guys, I mean, when they start giving that output that you were giving, you see him start to deteriorate, and then the guy can battle back. I mean, you see that very frequently. But from my analysis, from where I was sitting, it did not look like you were going to slow down. It looked like you could punch that guy for 30 minutes straight and just
Yeah, they were getting harder,
yeah.
as the time kept ticking down. I was throwing them even harder. Like I had an energy meter, and I'm gauging that at all times. And I was very comfortable putting that output out and being able to come back in round two, no problem.
Yeah, and it just seemed like something was in the air that night. I mean, you see it, like I said, you see that a lot in fighting. When Sean O'Malley in Boston, it just felt right. Conor McGregor when he knocked out Eddie Alvarez, it just felt right. Like
Mm.
it just you see that energy that in the air, and that's what I felt for you. I was just like, he's a bad guy. I'm not disputing your opponent, but at the same time, you know, it just felt right for me. When I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
about it,
And Francis is like you said earlier, he's a tough kid, man. Like, no disrespect to his skills at all. I was just a better man. That's why we took the fight. I felt like not even talking shit, but I just felt like he was like a wish version of me. Like he's good at grappling, good striker, good on the cage. He's good everywhere. He's not bad, but I felt like I was better in all those positions, like levels better. And then he'd never been on his back in a fight before. So I was like, when I get you on your back, how are you going to react? Because I knew he had decent jujitsu too. He'd been doing jujitsu for a long time. I believe he was a purple belt. And he just had no answers for my ground and pound attack. But I do think that fight was tougher than the Arguena fight. He's a bigger man. When you watch their wrestling tape, Francis to be better at wrestling, from my point of view. And, he's a better striker as well. So I think that was a tougher fight for me, especially to debut. And, with all odds stacked against me, winners find a way to win. And
Yeah,
that's exactly what I did.
absolutely. I mean, you look in any sport, winners win, no matter what. That's just the way it is. Winning's a mentality. I mean, and that's,
Mhm.
I think you can look at that from a society standpoint too. Like a lot of people are okay being second place. A lot of people are like, we've come this far, we got second place, I'm happy now.
Mhm.
But you see the winners take everyone's souls. David Goggins says, you know, and take a
Yeah.
soul. And I mean, that's just the way it is. You either come to win or you don't. And winners always come to win. So when you win, what was it like, sitting next to the big guy, talking to the big guy post fight? I mean, what's going through your mind? I mean, I can only imagine like after UFC debut, gets a first round finish, and now you got to do an interview right after. I mean, what's going through your mind? Are you like, all right, I got to watch what I say? Are you just like, I'm gonna lay it all out there? What's going on?
Uh, Man, I wanted to kind of tell my story a little bit, but I didn't want to run my mouth too much,
Yeah.
because I have a little bit of bad taste in my mouth for some of the things that happened with me. But I was very, very excited. Once I got my gloves taken off, I looked at them and I was just like, man, I belong here.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's real. Like I do belong here. Because before it was like, I think I belong here. Like I think I'm one of the best in the world. But like, what happens if I go out here and this guy's just levels above me and I thought he wasn't? Like us fighters, you always have those doubts, but some people can compress them and make them tight, almost like an air compressor. You can compress them and you
Absolutely.
can blow that shit out like a dragon, and put it on your opponent. And that's kind of what happened. I was super blessed to be able to fight under those lights, super blessed to be on that platform, and then to go out and have a 10 out of 10 performance like that, man, in a debut doesn't get much better than that. So just very happy overall with everything. I didn't get to talk to Dana or anyone. I don't even know if he was there. I didn't see him, but I did all my post fight interviews and stuff, and was just trying to get my story out a little bit and let people know that like I'm real. My record's not a fluke. I'm here to stay, and like you can't sleep on me no more.
Yeah. One thing I also noticed, uh, is the guys who trained at Glory with Kraus or even, I mean, Factory X, they're so superior on the cage. You
Mhm.
don't you like I've never seen. I mean, you look at Julian Marquez, you look at you look at, even on the regional scene, Gage Young, Mike England, they're so superior on the cage. And I think that's such an underrated thing. Um and fighting in general is everyone wants to talk about the low calf kick. Everyone wants to talk about, you know, boxing, but cage wrestling can win you a fight,
Oh,
and
it's different.
it's just so different. And I just know I've noticed just through years and years of watching fighting, training, things like that, is Glory guys are just so different on the cage.
Mhm. Yeah, we would train cage work once or twice a week. A lot of people don't ever get around to that or kind of half-ass train it. That's something that we were really focused on
Yeah.
back when we were training at Glory, and that's kind of what gave us the little advantage, just a little edge right there,
Yeah.
because it is different. There's like striking ranges. There's all sorts of different ranges: long, short, mid range. There's grappling off your back, grappling from the top, grappling on the cage. It's almost all a different sport, and the goal is to be able to blend all of them seamlessly.
Yeah. Which is why mixed martial arts is the best sport ever. I mean, and like, so I played football growing up, went to college. The thing about football is like if I'm playing quarterback, I have to rely on 10 other guys doing their job.
Hmm.
But if I'm in a fist fight, I could have the greatest corner you could ever put together. and it's still up to me. I could have Khabib giving me wrestling advice, you know, John Jones giving me striking and all overall advice, and I can have Anderson Silva giving me striking advice. And no matter what advice they're giving me, I have to execute it. And if my opponent is better than me, stronger than me, stronger willed than me, it don't matter. And that's why I love it. And at the same time, too, is we can be scheduled for 25 minutes, but it could take 1 second or it could take all 25 minutes. It just depends. And you can't blink or else you're gonna miss something. And that's why MMA, and it's the true sport. We're fighting to the death,
Yeah.
So
I mean, the only thing that could make it so fighting is a sport, it's a game, and so you have to know how to play the game
right.
in this. So like if I were to be able to rewrite the rules of the sport, this isn't for TV plays or views or for the show, A real fight is just an open field, and you fight until someone quits, gets knocked out, or TKO'd. I think the ref should be able to stop the fight, but I don't like how you get breaks in between and get re-stood up and everything, because in a real fight, if you end up on your back, you got to get up. There's no reset when time runs out. You're going to get beat on until you go to sleep. So that's the rules that I would like to play by, but that's not the rules that we play by. So yeah, it is what it is. It is a game, but it's a very violent, very it's hard to play it. You can't really play it. You can't really play the game. There's some people that are good at playing the game though. Like you see some of those long, tall, lanky cats just sticking that jab, just shooting BBs the whole round. You got to be able to change from the BBs to a 45 mag in the blink of an eye, and just boom, you got to be able to change it up like that. So it is a little bit of a game.
For sure. It's funny you brought that up because I actually wanted to talk about that. So, you hear a lot of criticism on the fight game. I think the biggest thing, well, and I agree. I think if we're fist fighting, I don't think we should fight 5 minute rounds. I think we should fight to a no time limit.
I mean, even if it's a time limit, even if it's 25 minutes, I still don't think you should get stood up,
Yeah.
like at the end, if you're still on your back, but I do get it for views and for the fans, that does make it more exciting, but I don't think it should be about excitement. I think it should be about fighting,
Yeah, for sure. And I think the biggest rule change that I feel like could actually happen is first round ends, the fight wherever it was resumes the second round where it was. So if I'm in full mount, I resume in full mount. Or if
And
I'm
that'd be
in half
terrible.
guard, if I'm in, whatever, I resume there. Because
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I said, I don't think if I'm getting dominated and grapple fucked, I don't think I should be able to like restart.
Right. Yeah. Like
Same.
if it's a grappler versus a striker, like the striker has the advantage because at the end of the 5 minutes he gets stood up, and he might be able to knock this wrestler dude out. Maybe the dude
Right.
only has grappling, you know.
Exactly.
So it's like it kind of changes the fight a little bit. And then the guy that is the wrestler, he has to take a risk. He has to shoot in, possibly get uppercut or kneed or anything like that. And he has to, if in a 5 round fight, you have to take that risk 5 times at least.
Right.
And that's if you have 100% finish rate. So that can get pretty sketchy, man.
For
Doing
sure.
something 5 times, you're bound to get caught one of them.
Well,
So
yeah, for sure. I mean, and just think about how many times that's happened before. I mean, wrestler shoots in,
yeah.
eats a knee, gets uppercut. I mean, it happens all the time. So it's definitely unfair to the wrestler. Um, Another thing is I think the 12-6 elbow should not be illegal. What, like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, you can bounce your shin bone across their face, but you can't elbow them straight down. It's kind of weird. I do get it, but because that shit will cut you real fast. Like that's a hard strike. But
Yeah.
also with some of we're allowed to use knees and stuff to the
Yeah.
head. Like you might as well just let it be legal. illegal.
Yeah, for sure. And then the last one is strikes to the back of the head, because the so we talk about how the grappler is unfair, is at a disadvantage. But when you get them against the cage, a grappler gets them against the cage and just tucks their head, that's almost unfair for the striker, because you can't hit them, you can't punch
Mm-hmm.
them because they have their head tucked in. And so I think that should be legal, and you just got to protect the back of your head like every other place you got to protect.
Well, yeah, it makes sense. The biggest thing is you can actually cause someone to be like
Yeah,
mentally backed up for the rest of their life.
right.
So I get why, but you see people still getting hit to the back of the head all the time and they don't do nothing. Like even in my fight, in my debut, I took the dude down and he was hitting me in the back of my head. Like they weren't hard strikes or anything like that, but they were right to the back, the middle of the back of my head. I was like, you're not even touching my ear, dude. But so I mean, it does happen, and the refs don't say anything sometimes. But it's when they start loading big shots to the back of the head, that's when you got to start being careful because you can paralyze someone like
For
that.
sure. Absolutely.
Uh, but also that force action, on the wrestlers end. If you have them pushed up on the cage, you can't just hang out on their legs, and they're gonna
Exactly.
start dropping stuff on you. You gotta actually improve the position.
Exactly. And I think that's the biggest thing. That's the biggest thing why I think it should be legal, is just because you see a lot of people, they'll get them up against the cage and they just hold them there, hold them there, hold them there until, something happens.
Yeah, they're taking their break.
Right.
They're on lunch break.
For sure. So it's like,
Everyone else gets a break when they do their job. Why don't we get one?
but yeah, so I just think it would just force movement. I mean, I think, and at the same time too, is if a wrestler is just laying in your guard, not advancing the position, I feel like it should be stood up too. I mean, you gotta advance the position. We can't just hang out and guard all day. And so I
Definitely.
think there should be more stand-ups too, because it's like you can't just get me down and just lay on me and not advance the position, not take a risk for a submission or anything. Because I mean, are you winning? I don't just because you're sitting in my guard does not particularly mean you're winning.
Yeah, it kind of depends. Like the bottom man has to be attacking though. Like
Yeah,
for example, in my fight, as soon as I got the takedown, Marshall's coaches were saying they're like, there's no action going on up top. You're gonna get stood up soon, Franny. They're trying to get the stand up, but he wasn't doing anything but trying to hold my head down. He wasn't
yeah,
attacking any submission or
right.
anything like that. So like I'm like, if you're just gonna lay here, I'm gonna lay here and just beat you up slow from guard until you
Mhm.
open your guard. You know what I
Right.
mean? So it's kind of give or take on that. But eventually I did bust through his guard and start laying down the big strikes. But his
Yeah.
coaches were calling from the stand up from the very beginning. So
Yeah.
like if they would have stood that fight up, that wouldn't have been cool at all because I was still working. He was just
Right.
not doing that. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Yeah. You will. Yeah, and it's definitely subjective. You have, as the guy on the bottom, you have to be trying to hip escape or trying to attack submissions, doing something. I mean, you can't just lay there and the guy on top lays there. I mean, that's not
Yeah.
going to work. You have to be advancing your position as well. The last thing, what's your opinion on MMA judging?
I I don't know. I haven't been on the wrong side of a decision yet, but I see people get screwed over every weekend. And I know for like my fight, I had a boxing official as a one of the people taking the score. So I was like, how the hell is this gonna work? So um, it's very hit or miss with those guys. You see some weekends they score it right, and then see some weekends they score it absolutely terrible. Uh, One that comes to mind, it might not have been terrible, but Jan and O'Malley's fight, I think they had the scorecard wrong. As a champ, they gave it to O'Malley. I think that was just them gifting him that decision, because he's the up and coming guy, more exciting than Jan. He speaks English. So definitely, I feel like he was gifted that decision a little bit. But you see it happen at every weekend, man. Somebody's on the wrong end of that, and it just sucks to see because like especially for the younger guys that aren't in the like top 15, they're not getting a lot of money. So you take you take half their paycheck away. That's a big deal. Like they're gonna have to fight again ASAP to put food in their family's mouth. So uh, that's kind of how it is. But you gotta try to finish the fight. That's the end of at the end of the day. You gotta try to finish the fight before the judges get there. And I think that's something that I've proven that I'm pretty damn good at.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the ultimate goal. When you go in there, we're not paid by the hour. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
It's not easy. It's not easy to, especially the tougher opponent you have, the harder it is to get them out. You
for
know,
sure.
for me, they're not getting any easier. So, um, it's just something that you have to have in the back of your mind. Like, look, I'm gonna give my all to finish this fight, and if it goes the distance, it does, and you just have to be comfortable and okay with whatever decision they give you, because you're not gonna be able to change it. You know, like
Right.
you, and they might not know a damn thing they're talking about. So
Yeah.
it's just how it is.
Well, I mean, sometimes I genuinely think we would get a better decision taking a random person off the street and putting them in as a judge. I mean, sometimes it seems as if that's what they did.
Yeah, I mean, there's biases and everything in the sport. Like,
Right.
even if they don't know someone personally, like you might know them and seen their highlight tape and be like, "Oh, I like him," and then next thing you know, you're judging the fight and you see him do a crazy spinning back kick or something, and you're like, "Oh, that was dope." Point, you know, like it, even if it barely landed. So it kind of it kind of sucks, man. Judging in MMA sucks, but like I said, you just got to finish these fights, get them out of there, and leave it up to yourself, not them.
Yeah, and if you're not going to finish the fight, at least try your hardest to be dominant. I mean, there's like this is also a thing too is like you're sitting down on your stool and your coach is like you're up 2-0. You know, like
Yeah,
how and then you take the third round off and then you lose because you took the third round off and it was actually 1-1, you know? And so it's like you can't slouch. You
yeah.
can't screw around. But what do you think about open scoring?
Um, see, open scoring is weird because like you said, if you are winning 2-0, now the guy knows he has to kill you, you know, so like he's gonna come out and give his full effort and really try to knock you out, which it does force action, but I don't really think it's fair to the guy that's winning because he should be doing that anyway, despite the scorecard, you know what I'm saying? So he's gonna come out and just try to blow your head into the third row right off the rip. You know what I'm saying? So because he knows he has to, that's the only way he's gonna win. He knows he's losing for a fact. So it's kind of subjective as well, man. MMA scoring is weird. That's why I'm just like, we should just go until someone quits, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I think like I like the Valley Tudo rules where it's like a 30-minute round and then I think there's like maybe one or two 5-minute rounds after something like that. But
Yeah.
but you think about it, like at this point, the 30-minute round would be enough. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
And
30
then,
minutes is more than enough.
no, it's more than enough. I don't know anyone that wants to fight for 30 minutes,
Yeah.
you know, especially if it's going back and forth, crazy war. You don't want to do that. Somebody's going to quit or get TKO'd. I think the ref should still always step in. I don't think you should let them get completely finished or anything. But I think that that's a true testament of the fight and tells the full story of a fight if you did it like that.
Yeah. So what do you think about the narrative of I mean this has been a big thing since the Aljo stoppage. What do you or even the Izzy stoppage? What do you think what do you think about the narrative that you know champs should be let go out, just let the champ go out on his sword? I mean, did you think the Aljo stoppage was early? Did you think the Izzy stoppage was early?
Um, Yeah, I thought the Alger stoppage was a little early, just a little bit, not a lot, just a little. Feel like as a champion in the UFC, you're the best fighter in the world in your weight class, you know. So like, you, you can't, you shouldn't be able to get screwed out of your belt or whatever by early stoppage. Now, I'm not saying let these guys get knocked out cold because they're the champion. I'm just saying you got to let them fight the fight. Like if they're still in the fight, if they're still awake, if they're still actively defending themselves, and I think that they should still be able to fight. In Aljo's case, he was getting beat up bad. He was taking big shots, or like big shots after he got sat down. And so obviously the ref is getting close and about to stop him. The only problem I had with that one was as soon as he turned over, which is what he needed to do to properly defend himself,
Right.
that's when the ref jumped in. And I'm
Yeah.
like, you got to let that play out just a little longer. Like if O'Malley would have jumped on him and just put like 3, 4 big strikes on him, just jumped on his back, wham, 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 probably stopped the fight, but he turned over intelligibly, whatever that word is. I don't even know. But he turned over, his brain was still firing. He was still awake at that point. And he was doing what he needed to properly defend himself. And I just felt like the ref jumped in before O'Malley landed the follow-up strikes. And he might have landed the follow-up strikes and ended the fight right there. So I just feel like as a champion, they're owed the respect to have to take that strap from them. You can't just give them to them and make it something controversial. Like it has to be taken.
Yeah. I'm with you. I think like I just think of it about it like what would I want as a if I was champ, like how would I
Oh
feel?
yeah.
I mean, because that's the only way to think about it. And I think Aljo, he made a great point. I mean, both Izzy and Aljo made great were both like very humble in defeat. Which I think Izzy was gonna be was in a worse situation than Aljo. But I also kind of feel like Izzy's was stopped a little too early. But I understand why it was stopped because Alex throws that switch knee. I mean, you're not coming back from that.
Yeah, that's a big man.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
a scary guy at 185.
yeah. I mean, huge. But Aljo, like you said, he rolled over on his back, and that's when you stop it. It reminded me a lot of when Colby was fighting Kamaru, and in the first fight, and Colby got on the single, and then it stopped the fight. And it was like, if you're gonna stop it at that point, stop it when I get dropped. Like I could swallow
Right.
that a lot more than when I get onto a single and then the fight's over, or when I roll over onto my back and now the fight's over. It's like I'm working,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it for a referee, I mean, I officiate wrestling at a high level, so I get it. It's a little different, but I get it. But you have to, as an official, you have to step back and kind of view the whole picture. You can't be up
Yeah.
close and uh, invested in the action too much because you will make those mistakes. It's human. It's just human nature. Humans make mistakes, and it does happen. And I feel like the officials learn from it a lot of times, especially if they're not ignorant. Um, but it's hard to do when you're trying to protect the athletes, as well as make sure everybody else is happy. When you're in an arena full of thousands of people, you're gonna piss people off no matter how you call it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, no matter what you do, someone's going to be pissed off. Um, and that's just the way it is. So wrapping it up, what's next for you? What's going on? Because I know, did you end up getting I think you ended up getting your bonus, right? Your performance
No, I
bonus?
didn't get a
You
bonus.
didn't get a bonus?
No bonus.
Wow, that's surprising.
They gave out 4 bonuses. I'm not really sure why I didn't get it. I'm not sure what more I could have done to get it. But at the end of the day, uh, those guys didn't vote for me to get the bonus, uh, which would have changed my life tremendously. So I'm going to have more opportunities to get it, hoping some big opportunities arise out of me not getting it, maybe some big sponsors or something like that. But yeah, man, I thought I did everything I needed to do to get a bonus. I thought that I had the performance of the night. It's performance of the night. The other guys that got it, they were supposed to win their fight. They should have won by knockout or something like that. My fight, I wasn't supposed to win on paper, and I just went out and starched him and won. So I feel like I earned the bonus, but at the end of the day, I didn't get it. So it is what it is, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, you can't sweat it too much because I mean, it's just like whatever, I guess. But at the same time, it's
Man,
life changing. So it's like you can't sweat it.
yeah.
It's like,
Yeah, I needed that. I'm about to be a dad. I needed that bad. So uh yeah, we'll be back on the drawing boards, hopefully put on another performance, and hopefully it just won't be denied next time.
yeah. I mean, I think you turned a lot of heads within that first fight. But as you know, fight fans, UFC fans, they're very what have you done for me lately? So
Mhm.
and you turned a lot of heads, but um it just is what it is in the fight game. So what's next for you going forward? I mean, do you have a date you want to are you shooting for anything like that?
So I was hoping to probably squeeze one more in before the end of the year. Definitely looking at later November, anytime December would work for me. Like I said, I'm back in Kansas City for like 2 more weeks, I believe, and then I'm headed back out to factory to start training again. Just kind of get an intro before camp. Uh, I am eyeing the MSG card though on November 11th. I think that'd be a good card to get on. I have a ton of fans show out for that. All my Armenian fans are out on that side. They're from New York, so uh, it would be. I would sell a lot of tickets. A lot of people would come see me at MSG. So I got my eyes out on that one. And if not, I just want to be in an arena my next fight. I fought at the Apex, thought it was cool and all, but I want to be in front of the crowd. I want to see all the fans there, and I want the exposure that comes with fighting in an arena. A lot of people are watching my fight, but not as many as an arena, and it's just a different vibe. So
Yeah.
I think that'd be really cool.
Well, I think New York, the only thing about New York is the taxes.
Yeah.
Oh my. But I think the December card would be dope too. I think Sean O'Malley. I mean, Sean O'Malley is obviously going to draw a lot of eyes in Vegas. Um, and perhaps maybe Connor, who knows?
Mhm.
But
It's gonna be a big one. So
yeah, I mean, either you can't really go wrong with either one, to be honest with you. Are you looking for a particular matchup? Are you looking? Do you have anyone particularly you want to fight, or just anyone?
I don't. I'm not really in a position to make a call on somebody right now. I just only have one fight in the UFC, but I do want to fight someone. I don't want to climb too fast right now. I do not have a lot of experience, so I want to fight someone at the bottom of my division, kind of around the area that I just fought, and get a little more experience under my belt, man. And here in like a year and a half, I like to really start getting a push to try to climb up the rankings. But for now, I know I need a few more fights to just kind of solidify where I'm at and keep getting better. I still have a lot of room to grow, still have a lot of room to improve, and I just don't want to be another statistic that was pushing it too early and have my career end early like that. I want to fight people that are on my level until I'm ready to move up and really make that push.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's smart. Sean O'Malley did it the best. I mean, if I were to map out a career, I would say do it like Sean O'Malley, fight the guys you're supposed to highlight reel or guys that are on your level. And then once you start getting a bigger fan base, you start getting more paychecks, bigger paychecks, then you can
Yeah,
start
yeah.
elevating.
Right. I don't want to fight someone that's like ranked 25th or something for my first contract,
Right. Absolutely.
I want to ride out this first contract and then get my new contract, tougher opponents, tougher guys, and the next contract, hopefully be cracking in the top 15. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, like I said, man, I still got a lot of time, a lot of growth I can make, especially in a year of time. So I'm just excited to figure out where I'm going to be at, how I line up with everyone. And, we might be going to 35. I might stay at 45. I'm kind of an in-betweener. I can make both weights. It's just weighing the pros and cons of going to 35 or staying at 45.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. My last question though. if you had a choice on how to defeat an opponent, are you taking knock them out cold? Are you taking submit them? Are you taking 40 or 50-44 on 50-43 on 5 round dominant?
Uh, yeah, yeah. So it kind of depends. Right now, where I'm at in my career, I want to get violent, nasty TKOs. That kind of just put my name on the map and kind of put uh a stamp on my division, like put me on notice. Um, so I want big finishes right now. And I don't want to. I'm willing to, but I don't want to get in any wars unless I'm on a bigger contract. You know, I want to finish these guys, get them out early. I think it would be cool to have like a 50-44 as like a champ or getting close up there to show like exactly how good I am. Like I dominate you all 5 rounds. I think that would be cool, but I'm not going to sit around and ask for that either. You know, like that's just asking for something bad to happen. So that's just asking for a lot of pain and a war. So yeah, I want to finish these guys early. I want to get finishes, and you know, maybe one day if I keep the streak I'm going on, I can have a record in the UFC for most finishes. You never know.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely something to shoot for. You know, what do they say? Shoot for the stars, land on the moon, something like that.
Something like that. Fuck, I don't know, man.
uh, well, thank you for coming on. I'm looking forward to watching your career play out, and hope to have you on soon, perhaps after your next fight. And
Yeah.
I wish you all the best, and I'll be rooting for you the whole way through.
Thank you, my boy. I appreciate the time. Thanks for having me on. We can do it anytime. Just let me know.
Sounds
You
good.
got my you got my celly, so just tap in.
Sounds good. Thank you, bro.
All right, brother. Have a good one.
You too.